Welcome to the Swirl Suite, everybody. So this week we interview Colleen Hardy. We met Colleen in the Finger Lakes back in August when we were there for the Finger Lakes conference. So here's the setting. We were on like a bar crawl kind of thing, but it was it was more like a tasting crawl. So you have all of these wineries set up in this little town that we were in Geneva. So if I remember this correctly, we had stumbled upon one of the tastings and it was like in a basement, almost like a little cave, and it was decorated and there might have been like maybe 6 or 7 wineries in there. Anyway, we spotted Colleen and we tasted her wine. This was our first introduction to Living Roots. She says, "Oh yeah, you have to go over there and taste my husband's wine." And we were like, "Your husband?" And she was like, "Yeah, he's the Aussie over there in the back." So of course we taste her wine, then we taste her husband's wine. After meeting this adorable couple, we have a lot of questions about how this even started. Colleen is here to tell us the entire story. We hope you enjoy. Cheers. Oh, one last thing. While we were recording, we were in the middle of a pretty big storm in the DMV area, and Leslie lost power. So you're going to hear this beeping. She's literally sitting in the dark with a flashlight. And I believe the beeping is the smoke detector. Just to warn you, in case it annoys you, sorry. Colleen, welcome to the Swirl Suite. How are you?
I'm good. Thank you so much.
As we were talking briefly, it was so nice to meet you and your husband in the Finger Lakes when we all were there. And you guys had an interesting story, so we had to have you on the podcast.
Well, thank you. I mean, it's funny, but it's obviously just your life, and but it is kind of unique how everything came together. So yeah. It's so fun to share.
Introduce yourself and tell everybody what you where you work and what you do.
Yeah, so I'm Colleen Hardy. My husband and I started Living Roots. So we're a winery in upstate New York in the Finger Lakes region. And then also in Adelaide, in the Adelaide Hills of South Australia. So, being a small business owner, so, I end up doing a bit of all sorts, but running winery in 2 countries, it keeps us pretty busy.
Hi guys. How are you doing?
I'm good. Yeah. I was just saying, we just got back from Australia, harvest in Australia a couple of weeks ago. So it's been pretty hectic trying to get back into the swing of things here, and yes, lots going on, but it's never a dull moment.
And so where are you located?
So right now I'm in Rochester. So we were in the Finger Lakes the last couple of days. We're working on we're building a new winery and tasting room in the Finger, on Cuco Lake. So I was there for most of today, but I just got home, and we live in Rochester most of the time.
Oh my goodness, you must be exhausted.
Yeah, I mean, we're so lucky to be able to do it. So I say it's hectic, and it is, but at the same time, we're very lucky, and we love it. That's why we do it. So.
Oh, that is cool. So what are you planting?
So my family, it's interesting because so my husband's family's been making wine since 1853. So he grew up around it. That's very much just been ingrained in him. Whereas my family, I grew up around the Finger Lakes, but really we didn't have anything to do with wine until I guess 8 or 9 years ago. So around the same time that I was getting into wine, my parents found this property that's only probably 2 miles away from their house, and it has a beautiful view overlooking Cuco Lake, and it had a lot of native and hybrid varieties planted, so a lot of Concord and Elvira, different things, but it hadn't really been looked after, at least in recent years, and so it needed a lot of work, but it also was very cheap, and so it was this piece of land that had a lot of potential, and just this beautiful view overlooking the lake. And so they were able to get it at a really good price, and they thought this could be even if they fixed it up and then kind of sold it to someone else, for a bit of a profit or something like that, they just sort of picked that up as a potential project. And around the same time, I was wanting to transition from marketing into the wine industry, and work to harvest, and so fast forward to, obviously I met Seb, who is a winemaker and knows a lot about viticulture and things like that. And so over the last sort of 6 years, I guess, we've been planting over some of, especially like the Concord has come out, and now we've been planting some different varieties. So we've got 6 different vinifera varieties now planted there. So, you know, we're buying the grapes from my family.
Okay.
And yeah, so then on that property we'll build a winery and a tasting room, you know, sort of this year to open next year. So
a question. So are you growing grapes in Australia and in New York, and are you blending them together?
So we haven't blended them together yet, but we really want to. And like since the beginning, we always thought that would be so cool, especially certain, you know, there's certain varieties that do better in one and not the other, or vice versa. But there are a lot of varieties that do well in both, just different expressions. So, you know, Riesling is one that people do in both, or like Pinot Noir, things like that, Cab Franc. And so there are varieties that we're like, oh, it'd be so cool to blend the two together. But just logistically, we haven't even looked into it yet, and like the legalities of how we would label it and all of that. We've got our hands pretty full just making wine in one or the other, and so trying to combine it, we're like, definitely someday we want to look into it and make that happen, but it's just been pretty low on the priority list. So
gotcha.
Yeah, but it would be cool.
Super interesting, because even though it's the same varietal, they definitely have different characteristics because of regional influences. So that would be completely interesting what that blend would be.
And so we haven't blended them together, but we have tried to show the comparison, I guess, in a few different wines. Like most of the time it's sort of, we make, you know, these ones in Australia and these ones in the Finger Lakes, but we have, you know, we did a Riesling pet nat in both places. And so that's one that we could show side by side, or like early on, we did a Chardonnay in both places. So we've done it a couple of times, and it is fun to show, like, look, same winemaker, same grape, more or less, you know, the same approach, but obviously very different just because of the climate and all of that. But we haven't done too much of that.
Okay.
How do you manage that? I mean, it's one thing to have like, oh, I have a vineyard in like Rochester, making that up, and then I have a vineyard in the Finger Lakes. But it's one thing to say I have a vineyard in the Finger Lakes, and then I have a Finger Lake in Australia. Like, how does that happen? How do you manage the day-to-day of that?
Yeah, it is a lot. We have really good people, thankfully, and so, you know, we've had some people working with us for over 4 years now, so there's been a lot of trust established, and they get what we're trying to do, and that's really nice. Like, it gets easier and easier each year. Now that we're adding this Finger Lakes winery, I am like pretty nervous just because it's taking on one more thing, and you know, I feel like we're finally maybe kind of finding our groove, but we're just about to totally throw that out because now we're adding like another complication, but it's all long-term for the best. But yeah, no, it is tricky. So in Australia, we just have one employee. We have like an associate winemaker, and he obviously helps Seb during harvest, but then he's kind of looking after the wines the rest of the year while we're not there. But in New York, we definitely have more going on. So we have our sort of urban winery and tasting room right in Rochester. And that we have a pretty significant team, you know, helping run that because we're right in the city of Rochester. It feels a little bit more like a wine bar. We don't really have the seasonality that the Finger Lakes does. And we don't really get the tourism, but we have a lot of sort of just regular traffic, I guess, coming in. And so that really took like a lot to set up and get running smoothly. And then with COVID, of course, like having to sort of adjust and be closed for periods here and there. But I feel like that's like a pretty well-oiled machine now. Like, we're always trying to improve and do things better, but you know, we feel pretty comfortable with how that's going. And then the Finger Lakes edition is really, you know, for two reasons. I mean, one is the winery itself, we're kind of bursting at the seams in Rochester because we're right in the city. And so there's nowhere to spill out, you know, during harvest, we get grapes in, and you can't just like put the grape bins out onto a patch of grass or something while you're moving things around. Like we were very limited to the space that we have. And we pay pretty significant rent on that space. We don't own the building or anything. And so, even just ceiling height, things like that. It's an old warehouse. Like the building's super cool. It was built in the early 1900s. But it's, it has its limits. And then on the sales front, the tasting room, we love the sort of the vibe and the feel. It's very welcoming. And, the idea is just to bring people in to enjoy wine and, just make it really sort of comfortable and all of that. But we don't get, because people come in and they have a glass of wine and a cheese board and they catch up with their friends. And we love that and the community feel of it. The flip side is people aren't really leaving with like a case of wine. They're not coming to taste with the intention of like going wine tasting to buy wine like they would in a wine region more often. And so we're hoping having that balance of like, we'll keep the Rochester location. And then we're hoping with the Finger Lakes, get a bit more of the tourism, get people who like come visit us to, really delve into the wines and hopefully take some home and things like that. So hopefully they'll work, hand in hand and complement each other. That's the goal.
You said it's an urban winery. Do you share the space with anybody else? Is it like a co-op?
It's not a co-op. The winery itself's not a co-op, but the building itself has a bunch of other stuff in it. So there's like 17 apartments, which was handy. We actually rented one for like the first 4 years that we started the winery. So we were living like pretty much right upstairs. And then there's a bunch of other businesses. There's like kind of thing. There's like, there's a graphic designer who we work with a lot. So that's awesome because she's like right across the hall. And there's like a hair salon and there's all sorts of stuff in there. So, we take up maybe a quarter of the building. And then the rest is kind of mixed use. So it's fun. We love it. We love being in Rochester. And then on the flip side, we get to go to the Finger Lakes to source all of our grapes and, we still spend a lot of time down there. So we kind of get the best of both worlds.
So you have to tell us the origin story. So I read that you were tired of cubicle life.
Yes.
And you wanted to change. And that's what led you to wine in Australia. Just tell us that whole story and how you met your husband.
Yeah, I look back and I can't believe I actually went. B, I can't believe we met. It's all very strange looking back on, but at the time it's obviously it's all happening. So, but yeah, I was working in marketing and marketing research specifically. And so it was a lot of like spreadsheets, numbers, analytics. And I'm actually surprised I lasted that long because even now, I'm on my computer a lot, but I get antsy. I like to switch things up and do different things throughout the day. And so, I did that for a while, but I was hitting the point where I thought, you know what, this is probably not what I want to do forever. And the clients that I was working with were really big food manufacturers. So, I learned a lot. They have a lot of resources, but at the same time, I'm like going to the farmer's market on the weekends and I like to know where my food is coming from and things like that. And so it was hard to stay motivated, I guess. And I just decided, you know what, like, even if I stick with this sort of role or with marketing in general, I could find a product I'd be a little more excited about. And, I liked wine just to drink here and there, but I was starting to get more into it. And then I decided to just like dive all in. And so I read up on some books and took an online class. Like UC Davis had, I don't know if they still do or not, but they had like an online intro to wine and winemaking, probably like 8 weeks or something course. And so I did that. And, I just would look forward to getting home from, my 9 to 5, which really was like a 7 to 7. And, I'd get home, but look forward to listening to the lectures and whatever. And so I just decided like, all right, this is what I want to do. And to get a break from, the computer, the cubicle, I thought, why don't I work a harvest, really just like have a little bit of a break, I guess, from what to me at the time was like my real world, and learn more about the product. And then if I stick with marketing, I can at least speak to the product and the industry better. So that was the plan. And, sounded great in theory. But then logistically, I think it was like August when I decided that's what I wanted to do. And so I kind of had this decision to make. So it was, I was in Chicago at the time, which I loved. But you can't make wine. I mean, there's no wineries in Chicago. So it was either wait a full year to kind of go to California or something like that, or I do Southern Hemisphere. So that's what I decided to do. So that's kind of how that led me to that point anyways. And then it came down to, okay, well, how do I find a job? I have no experience. And I had a kind of friend of a friend working for Constellation, and was really a friend of my family, working for Constellation, and they had owned some wineries in Australia. So they put me in touch with someone over there, and I basically just said, I don't know, I have no experience. I'm coming with kind of like very new to this, but I'll work really hard and I'll do whatever you need me to do. And so I got a job, just as a harvest cellar hand. And it was great because it was at a big winery. They had, I think there were 19 of us that were cellar hands just for harvest. So we all were kind of starting fresh, and I wasn't the only person who didn't have winery experience. It was kind of all levels of experience. So that made it a lot less intimidating. But the winery I was at was Hardy's, and it's not family owned anymore. So Constellation owned it at one point, and that's kind of how I got connected, because Constellation's headquartered here in Rochester. And so, that kind of all led me to Hardy's. And what I didn't know at the time is that my husband's great grandfather had started it back in 1853. So, it's not family owned anymore, but it was for 5 generations. And so, I started working there, and then we kind of quickly met through someone I was living with, just one of the other cellar hands that I shared a house with. And we actually met the first time at a grocery store, which is very random. But I was with my housemate who had already told me about him. It's like, there's so many weird little, she had shown me his Facebook, which is so strange. Like, that's the first time that had ever happened to me.
She knew all along.
She did. She was like, I think that you would really hit it off with this guy. And then we met then we ran into him at the grocery store, and I'm thinking, why does that guy look familiar? Like, I don't even know anybody in Australia. I just got here. I know no one. And then she was like, oh my gosh, Seb. And I thought, oh, right, I Facebook stalked you. This is weird.
So what did you think of him when you met him in person?
Oh, I thought he was great.
Okay.
Yeah, no, I thought he was really, we hit it off like right away. And, I was only planning to be there for 4 months, and ended up living there for like 2.5 years before we started Living Roots. So.
Well, I want to say that was a good answer about him, because he may listen to this podcast. And so
I think he's like, I had headphones in, but I think he's like in the kitchen. So he definitely heard that.
And you are, believe it or not, the second person I have met that went to Australia to do some wine thing, and met their partner, their husband.
Really?
So maybe this is like, to all those people on Match.com or Bumble, forget that. Just move to Australia.
I mean, it worked for me. I lived in Chicago for 2.5 years, and I had zero luck on the dating front. And so my friends would say, they're like, oh, maybe you'll meet someone in Australia. I'm like, you guys, I'm going to be working nonstop. I've been here for so long. I've met no one. Like, I'm not going to meet anyone there. And then I met Seb in like 2 weeks.
Oh, so
maybe, those Aussies, I don't know.
Yeah, look, hey, Serena, maybe this is a business venture for us. Like,
it could be.
People.
There is a new dating show that I've been watching on Bravo called Atlanta Matchmaker.
Okay.
Leslie, yes, we have to put this together. Yeah.
Like, I'm trying to think of a name, but they're all so corny, the ones that are coming to my head. So.
Those are perfect. Those are the ones.
Yeah, they're memorable.
Yes.
Yeah, it's true. It's true. Yeah, we'll work on it.
So you fall in love with your husband in Australia. You stay there for 2 years. Do you guys start Living Roots in Australia? Is that how it happened?
Yes. So, yep. So we were each kind of working in different aspects of the industry, and he was doing a little bit of like sales and marketing for his family, but his background's winemaking. So that's what he studied. He's done, a bunch of vintages all over. And so he really wanted to get back to winemaking. But he was wanting to do his own thing. So I think, he was kind of had a lot of experience under his belt, but really wanted to just like go for it, make his own wines. And at the same time, I loved day-to-day life in Australia, but I was getting pretty homesick. Like my family is all here. We're really close. And I was missing, some big milestones and whatever. And so I just, as he was talking about wanting to start a winery, and I'm getting homesick, and it's like, well, hang on, like if you start a winery, I'm never going to end up home. And so that was a bit of a crossroads, trying to figure out like, what does the future look like? Because we knew we wanted to be together, but kind of just trying to figure out like, where do we want to settle down, because we love it here, but if we set up a winery, that means we're here for a very long time. And so that's when we started sort of toying with the idea of, what if we did both? I mean, they're opposite seasons, the climates are very different. It would be complicated, but it would also, if we could pull it off, it would be amazing. And so that's what we started trying for. And so 2016 was our first. So yeah, it was 2014 harvest that I went over, and we met the first, that first time. And then 2016 was the first harvest we did for Living Roots. So, we still spent the first half of 2016 there, but Seb had left his job at that point. I was still working full time. And he started making the first batch of wines of, what would become Living Roots, and kind of working on the branding and all of that stuff. So, and then we came to the States, did, Finger Lakes harvest in 2016. So since then, we've basically done 2 harvests every year. So we kind of jumped all in.
I'm exhausted just listening to this. Oh my goodness.
I know. It's like, it's such a double-edged sword, because love it, and we get to see both of our families, and we get to make all these different styles, really well, because they're so suited to the different climates. And then at the same time, it's like, it is nonstop. It's nonstop. So, we just take it day by day.
So you mentioned the seasons are different. So what season is it in Australia right now?
It's winter. It's going into winter now. So we so we came back like 2 weeks ago. And we actually hadn't even finished. I mean, all the grapes were in the winery, but we hadn't pressed everything off yet. So our associate winemaker was kind of finishing off the last batches. Usually we're there like February, March, April, and then give or take, depending on kind of what's going on. But so now harvest is over, kind of going into winter, which it still actually gets pretty cold, but nothing like here. So we get to miss like most of the Rochester winter, which is nice.
Oh, that's nice.
I know. It works out really well. We like get Christmas and kind of like the nice festive part of winter, and then we're out.
Are your wines distributed?
So honestly, that's like the biggest thing I need to be focusing on right now. I mean, the Cuca project is taking definitely some attention off of distribution, but that's what I need to be focusing on. So we self-distribute in upstate New York, but we really need a distributor. So right before COVID, I had started reaching out to distributors in some other, New York City and some other markets, especially East Coast. But then of course, when everything shut down, people, they weren't looking to expand portfolios and just trying to take care of the wineries they already had and things like that, which makes sense. But that was very tricky for us. So, we actually, part of the reason we came back earlier this year is to focus, we're trying to focus more on sales this year. We stepped up production a lot the last 2 years. So this year we still made a decent amount, but we kind of took a breather just to get caught up on vintages and things like that. So at the moment, definitely distribution is priority. So we're not huge. We can't be everywhere, nor do we want to be everywhere. But at the same time, like if we can get into, New York, Massachusetts, Pennsylvania, DC, that sort of thing would be ideal. So we're working on it, but it's tough.
So it seems like you both have backgrounds in marketing. Is there a different way, or do you have to use different strategies to market in both places, in Australia and New York?
It's tricky. So even though we both have experience in marketing. I also feel like because we're like running a business, our focus is very much pulled away from marketing often. And it is a complicated business. So I struggle with that because people have asked, like, you know, have you thought about setting up a separate Instagram account for both, or, you know, that sort of thing, which I see the benefits in some ways, but at the same time, like, I want to show both sides of it because it's so integral to the winery and who we are and what we're doing. And so, you know, right now it is tricky, like trying to differentiate, you know, which wines are available in each place and how to market it. And when we started, you know, 100% of our sales were going through Rochester and pretty much all through the tasting room. And so, you know, our marketing was very much aimed at bringing people into the tasting room. And so bit by bit, I've been trying to make it a little bit broader so that people who are following from, you know, Australia or from other markets that we want to get our wines into, but they're not available yet. So it's tricky because it's like, you know, posting in Rochester is going to actually translate to sales because they can buy the wines here. But at the same time, like, forward thinking, we need to be getting the wines to a broader audience. So I've been trying to post more with that in mind. And, you know, we're redoing the website right now. And again, like when we first started the website, it was a little bit more hospitality focused, getting people into the tasting room. Whereas now, you know, I recognize that we need to be showing more about our winemaking and our approach and the behind the scenes sort of, you know, not just focusing on wine club and events and things like that. So yeah, it's been a little bit of a transition just because where we started and then where we're going are not, the goal is different now, I guess.
Gotcha. Yeah. You know, that's honestly the winemakers that I follow on social media. That is the most interesting part when they show the winemaking process and they show the vines and the good and the bad. We have one guest, Brene. She tells us all of her animal stories. I mean, rattlesnakes and
oh my gosh.
I mean, mice eating through her engine because she lives on a farm. Just crazy stuff.
Yeah. There's definitely, like, you know, people think this romantic, they have this vision in their head of winemaking, which, yes, like sometimes I get to stomp on grapes and it's the best thing ever. I love it so much, but that's like a very, very small part of it. And, you know, it's a lot of cleaning and it's a lot of, yes, animals and all the elements. So, and I'm so bad at like capturing in the moment. So I'm not good at, I need to get better, especially now with like TikTok and all these things that like, I don't even know anything about. So I can't really say I'm a marketer anymore because I'm very behind on the times, but I'm just not good at the in the moment kind of, which I need to get better at because it is what people, you know, it's what people want to see. It's what I would want to see. And it shows people that, you know, that we are real people behind the wines and what goes into it. But it's often like an afterthought, like, shit, I haven't posted in 3 days. What am I going to post?
I think it's something that we take for granted because we've seen behind the scenes and you work behind the scenes, but it is definitely something that people find very interesting.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, I did, it's different, like hearing about things like pump overs, you know, yes, in theory, I can imagine what that would be like, but I just remember actually like seeing it and it's so cool.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I follow this winemaker on TikTok and all he did was show the bottling process. It wasn't fancy, but I was sitting there like, huh. And I even watched it a few times, like, no, where are the corks? No, it comes out of that place. And just it's yeah. So it is very fascinating. Yeah.
I need to do more of that. Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah, get on it. Get on it.
Yeah, I know. No, I will. All right. Hold me to it.
Leslie, you have any other questions for Colleen before we hit our closeout questions?
Nope. Just the shadow from the dark.
Oh.
I know. Do you have wine at least? I feel like you need a good wine.
Oh yeah. What are y'all drinking?
Yeah, I actually don't know because Seb poured it for me right before we started. So I will find out afterwards.
And I have to upgrade my glasses. Your glass is really nice.
You know, one of our employees gave it to us for Christmas.
That is nice.
Those are beautiful.
I know. We Seb and I each have one, and so it's like my glass.
Gotcha.
So
like the whiskey shaped glass that true tulip. I love that. Yeah.
Yeah. He used to own a restaurant. And so he had all of these like beautiful glasses from his restaurant. And so for Christmas, he gave us, like, everyone on the team, or at least like all the managers and stuff, he gave all of us one of the glasses. So
very nice. Leslie, what are you drinking?
I am drinking an Albarino.
Ooh.
And I went to a new vineyard in Maryland. Well, it's new-ish. It's called 61 Vineyards. And they're in Damascus, which is in Montgomery County, like a local county or what have you, which is incredibly interesting because Damascus, for the longest, until 2017, was a dry.
Oh, wow.
A dry city. Yeah, it's hard to believe. And this is, Colleen, just to give you perspective, this is maybe 45 minutes outside of Washington, D.C.
Wow.
So yeah, it's not like we're not talking the sticks. I mean,
right.
But yeah. And so they opened this vineyard and they call it 61 because I think like the parents met in 61, like all, and they were born in 61. And so
cute.
Yeah, that's what they call it.
How's the Albarino?
Oh, it's good. It's really good. Albarino has become one of the mainstays in Maryland. Before, like Sarita can testify, maybe like 10 years ago, maybe one or two of the vineyards were growing it in this region, but people have learned that does really well in this humid climate that we have here. Very, very hardy.
I mean, not only was it hard to find Albarino when you went to vineyards, it was hard to get Albarino when you went to wine shops.
Yeah.
So
yeah, it's a variety that I haven't had a ton of examples, but I've really enjoyed. It's one I want to explore more. Like, I've enjoyed what I've had.
Absolutely.
Mm-hmm.
And what about you? Are you having a
I just logged off of work, so I haven't been downstairs yet. So I'm going to get something.
Well, I look forward to hearing what I'm having. We made a couple of deliveries to wine shops in Ithaca yesterday. So that's, as I say, we self-distribute in upstate New York, which is, it's great that we can like legally do that, because obviously with the 3-tier system, a lot of states require a distributor, but because we're a New York winery, we can sell directly to places in New York, which is a good kind of interim option until we have a distributor. But the tricky thing is then often, somebody has to deliver it. And so, we have, sometimes it's people on our team, but sometimes it's us. And so, yesterday we had 2 accounts in Ithaca that we delivered to. And of course, then, you're in a wine shop delivering wine, supposed to be, making money, but then you're surrounded by all these bottles, and then we just end up shopping at the same time.
Wow.
So we got some recommendations on some wines. So exciting to restock the cellar a little bit, do some benchmark tasting.
And do you guys ship?
We do. So right now we ship to, I can't count how many states it is, but we ship to like within New York, Massachusetts, Illinois, DC, Florida.
Okay.
I know I'm forgetting something, but so we ship to DC, and then a few other states as well. Yeah.
Leslie, when we stop recording, you have to tell her about your wine club.
Oh, yes.
Sounds good. And I was just thinking, I don't know why I didn't send you wine so you could be drinking our wine while we're talking, but I'm going to blame the fact that I was in Australia. So I should have done that.
That's okay. So here are our closeout questions. Okay. First one, koala or kangaroos?
Definitely koalas. I'm obsessed with them. I love them so much.
Gotcha. Are kangaroos mean?
I mean, they're both kind of mean, really, but I mean, they're not going to bug you. Like, just don't threaten them in any way. Okay. Yeah, but
got it.
They're so cute.
Okay. What's the weirdest thing you've ever eaten?
Okay, there's this place it's like 6-hour drive from Adelaide in South Australia, and it's kind of like the gateway to the outback. So you're not totally in the outback yet, but it's definitely like the red soils and mountains and kind of in the middle of nowhere. And there's this hotel that's like we were staying in, basically, I feel like it's like a little shipping container, but like before they started making really cool shipping container tiny homes. I don't know. So it's like very basic, but then they have this like a kind of restaurant bar, and there's nothing else in the town. Like you're in the middle of nowhere. But the restaurant is like really, really good. And they have this thing, they call it the feral platter. And it's got like emu and camel and alligator and like and kangaroo meat, like the most random. And like so some of it's in like sausage form, some of it's more like a steak form, whatever. And just that platter is the weirdest thing I've ever eaten, definitely.
Okay.
Yeah.
Do you have one, Leslie? Have you eaten anything weird?
I don't think so. I mean, I don't like, well, Glennis would consider it weird because
Glennis's list of weird things is really long.
Yes. I think, I mean, I'm quite sure there's other weird things. I just, don't, but boudin is always something that people are like, oh, I don't know about that. I'll pass.
What is it?
Yeah. It's called boudin, and it's, are you familiar with dirty rice or rice dressing?
Oh, a little bit.
Yeah. So it's basically that, and, they use all of the parts of the pig and what have you that people just don't eat, and they mix it with rice and put it in a sausage casing.
Right. Interesting. Yeah, I don't think I've ever had that.
Yeah. What about you, Rita?
It would probably have to be like escargot, or maybe like, I really love fish. So I eat everything. If I have a whole fish, I'm eating everything but the bones. So even like the eyes and everything.
I was just about to say, what about the eyes?
Yes.
Ooh,
yes.
Okay.
So I really, really love fish. So I think that's the weirdest thing.
Good one.
All right. What's the next one? Okay. Tell us, what's the difference between Aussie and American barbecue?
So I feel like Aussie barbecues are often like super no frills, like very low key, sort of just basic but delicious. So they'll often just do like sausages, which they'll call snags. So like just put a snag on the barbecue, and they'll just have it with a slice of white bread. Like you can buy hot dog buns, but I've never really seen anyone buy them except for myself. And so they just do like a slice of white bread, a sausage, and like some ketchup, which they call tomato sauce. Or Tom sauce. Well, tomato sauce, but Tom sauce. And then that's it. And often like not even plates or anything. It's just like loaded up, handheld. That's it. And everyone's just standing around eating their snag. So like just like pretty basic but delicious. Whereas here, I don't know, I feel like maybe we go a little more all out with like ribs.
I mean, we're extra. Yeah.
So
Colleen, I have to say, that's how I grew up, with just a piece of white bread and a hot dog stuck.
I love it.
And I didn't appreciate that as a child. I was like, where is the hot dog bun? And of course my mother was like, you don't need a hot dog bun, and your bread is fine.
I mean, it does achieve the same purpose. I guess it's harder, like you can't really put it down. That's the thing though. It's like, it's just going to roll off. If you said it doesn't hold its shape like a hot dog bun. That's where I think the benefit is. But otherwise, I mean, it tastes the same.
I mean, I feel like...
I'm sorry. And then the bread gets soggy and like
it's true.
To your
yeah.
Yeah.
Well, fair. And I feel like we grew up on, Leslie, like a hot dog or like a sliced sausage, but you split it in the middle and you fry it, like kind of like sear it or whatever. Yeah. And it curls up, and then you put it on the bread and you put mustard on it, and that's that's that.
Yeah.
Okay. Which Living Roots wine would you pair with pods? And you'll have to explain what pods are.
Okay, so I have to be honest, I had to look up what pods were, because I know it's really weird, because so on like most of the Aussie sort of candies, chocolates, whatever, I feel like I've tried, and like Seb has kind of over the years been like, oh, you have to try this, you have to try this, you have to try this. For some reason that one never came up, but then I asked him about it. He was like, yeah, those were probably introduced when he was like a teenager or something, so that it wasn't one that was like around forever. but I don't know why he never introduced me to them. I'm a little salty about it because they sound amazing. Like it basically looks like it's like, in my head, I'm picturing like almost a Reese's cup and a Snickers like combined or something.
Yeah,
and
it's like a little block. It's like a little pod.
Yeah,
so
like
good.
filled with caramel. Yeah, they look so good.
Wow.
But based on what I imagine it to be like, we have a fortified musket dessert wine that I think would be like perfect with it because it has like caramelized characters, and I just feel like now I want the pairing so badly.
I wonder if like can I order them online so I can just taste a few?
No, yes, I'm gonna order some and then I'm gonna send it to you with the wine and we're gonna test out this theory. And it's gonna be so great. I know. No, I'm making myself a note now because if I don't write it down, it doesn't exist. Pods and musket. Okay, we're doing it. It's gonna be great.
I love it. Okay, last question. When you are not drinking your own wine, Living Roots, what are you drinking?
So it's interesting because we do drink a lot of our own wine in a way, but at the same time, like we love drinking other people's wines and like continuing to explore and learn. And I also think, especially for Seb, because he's more, kind of in charge of the winemaking, like I'll help put together blends or help in the winery during harvest here and there, but it's definitely more his focus. And so for him, drinking his own wines, I think is hard to relax doing because he's like over analyzing and thinking, what he should do differently next time, or, it's hard not to like just overthink it. So we do drink, a lot of other people's wines, in the Finger Lakes, we'll do swaps with other wineries. And so, a lot of Finger Lakes wines, but in general, we drink a lot of lighter reds, like Nebbiolo is a favorite for both of us actually. So yeah, I would say Nebbiolo or a Pinot Noir. I love lighter reds. So that's what I go for. What about you? What are your favorites to go for?
Oh gosh. I'm honestly an equal opportunist. Like yesterday, what did I have? Oh, I had a wine from Texas. I participated in this virtual tasting a few months ago, and Texas wineries sent like, I swear it was like 15 wines, 15 from 15 different wineries in Texas.
Awesome.
And my last one was a white blend, and it was a blend of Malvasia and Viognier.
Cool.
Yeah. So yeah, and I had it's very interesting. Yeah, I loved it. And I had a poke bowl last night.
Yum.
So I just paired that together. So
that sounds awesome.
Yeah. So that's what I've been drinking. What about you, Leslie?
Yesterday I actually went out vineyard visiting, and we stopped at this meadery, and I got a bottle of this hibiscus mead, which was super, super cool. I enjoyed that.
That sounds awesome. We're talking about it because, our winery is right in Rochester. We do some like wine classes. We keep them pretty like light. I mean, we do host some WSET classes, but usually we just do like wine and cheese pairing, or like we keep it pretty fun. And but I guess there's a guy who comes in a lot who has his own bees and makes his own honey and mead. And so we were talking about having him come in and teach a mead class, which I am excited about because I feel like I think I've probably tried 2 meads in my life, maybe if that, probably maybe only one. So I'm really excited to learn more about mead, hopefully. We'll see.
This is a side note, Leslie. When you deliver my wine, I have to give you the mead that I have for you from our previous guest. He sent the mead. He sent 4 bottles.
I got it.
Oh, so he sent each of us 4 bottles?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I wanted
I get to keep all of them. Oh,
yeah.
Great. Awesome.
Yes. Mm-hmm.
That's awesome.
Yeah. Colleen, thank you so much for joining us today. This was
Thank
so
you
fun.
for having me. It was so good to catch up, and especially with the storm and all. I'm glad you can make it work, Leslie. I really hope your power comes back soon. I feel so bad just like leaving you.
It's never been this long. I'm leaving.
Whose house are you gonna go to? You gonna go to your parents' house?
Yeah, I got it. But I got to call to see. Did you get the hail? I guess we can talk about this later.
Yeah. Okay.
But it was.
Colleen, before you go, tell everybody where they can follow you or in any releases you have coming up.
Definitely. So you can follow us at Living Roots Wine. So that's usually Instagram is where I post. And then everything goes to Facebook as well. And we actually have a lot of fun new releases coming up. So because we just got back from Australia, we're like a little bit behind on our Finger Lakes bottlings, but soon we're going to be bottling Cab Franc and Rosé and a bunch of stuff. And then we also just recently released a range we're calling like our session wines, and they're a little bit lower alcohol. They're all like 8 to 10%. So just trying to like take it down a notch, still like loads of, character and really delicious. They're made with sort of the same ethos as the rest of ours. So all wild ferment and like no adjustments or anything, but we're just looking to, have them just a little bit lower alcohol, a little, keep it a little more balanced. And so we're really excited about those. We've got like, 6 different session wines, I think, at the moment. So that's kind of the latest we've been up to.
Awesome. Leslie, what about you? Anything coming up this week? Are you interviewing somebody this week?
Yeah, we're going to do a pop-up at Union Market on Saturday. And we posted it on our Instagram
what time?
page. I think it's from 12 to 5.
Oh, nice. I'll stop by.
Yeah. So we're doing a pop-up.
Cool.
Awesome.
Great. Well, thank you so much.
Hopefully the weather is like great by then.
Yeah, I know. Yeah. Crazy.
Outdoors or are you indoors for your pop-up?
We're going to be indoors.
Yes, oh, good. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
We are doing a pop-up like every weekend of the summer, but it's a tent outside. And so every weekend I'm just checking the forecast. Like, what are we set? Like, we're just at the mercy of the elements. So I hear pop-up and I'm like, what's the weather?
Right.
Well, this was wonderful. Thank you again. And we'll put all of your links in the description box.
Okay. And then I'll email you to get your addresses so I can send you wine.
Absolutely.
And pods.
And pods.
Yes. I'm excited about that. Thanks again for joining the Swirl Suite. We hope you enjoyed this episode. Be sure to leave us some reviews and some 5 stars wherever you listen to your podcast. And be sure to follow all of us on social media and the Swirl Suite podcast at Swirl Suite. Cheers.